piggies. Look out. Look out. I know, look out. You're gonna break this one too. Yeah. You need more water, huh? Because you dumped it. There you go. Look out. Coming in. Alright, there you go. You're alright. So, it's been an interesting morning on the farm today. The pigs are definitely getting bigger and a little bit more aggressive, which that's a good thing. We're trying to get them fattened up. I'd really like to butcher the first one here in a few weeks. I don't know if that's gonna happen. If you've been watching our channel, then you know we've had some issues with these guys, and one of the feeds that we were feeding them, you're all right. You're all right. So we've been adjusting, and now they are doing really great. They're thriving. But they keep on dumping over their water. So here, because it gets so cold, we can't put too much water in their pan. I don't use heated pans or anything like that. We just haul buckets of water for them. Hey, hello. So if we add in too much water and then it gets really cold at night, then the buckets freeze. So right now they're just going through a lot of water. And so we're just having to haul more buckets, and that's okay. It's for a very short period of time. I don't mind doing that. It is one of the trade-offs for raising pigs in the wintertime. Hi, buddy. Yeah, hi. But there is a lot less fuss when you are raising them in the winter because you don't get the smell. Hi. You guys are feisty. Don't dump this pan of water, okay? So that's one of the things we've been dealing with today. Not really anything new, not a huge deal. But yeah, I want to take you over and I'll show you some of the other things we got going on. So chickens are sort of a hot topic right now, especially if you're in the United States and watching this. It's particularly eggs or lack thereof. Hi, pigs. Yeah, you guys stay on that side, okay? So that's very rude. So we typically hatch out our own chicks. Last year I had no plans of doing that. We were gonna take a year off and not hatch any. However, seeing the things that were going on with the chicken flu, whatever, we decided that we probably should go ahead and hatch out some eggs. So we ended up hatching out chicken eggs in about, I think it was August, sometime late summer anyway. And that means that these new chickens are not going to be laying any eggs until about this time. So it's about 6 months or so. Hey, nope. Quit eating that. Nope. I'm gonna walk and talk and get out of here. The pigs think that they should eat the chicken treats, and I don't want them to, so I don't want them to come through that fence. We may end up having to make some changes to our chicken pens. You just never know. So, hang on, let's put you down here. So, we hatched out the chicken eggs, and most of the time when you do that, you're going to end up with a large number of roosters. That was true. We've already butchered them, but there's always a few that are late to bloom, should we say, and they did not turn into roosters or the ones that you could notice during that first culling. And so now we have found we've got about 5 roosters, and I really only want 2. So what that does is you end up just feeding these big birds for no reason. They're not benefiting us at all. So we'll go ahead and get those culled out. Actually, a friend of mine is going to come and do that. I have to ask her, pretty please, friend, if you're watching this. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get those roosters culled out, the extra ones. We really only have our old rooster Titus, who I love, and then we have his predecessor. I think the kids call him Hot Rod. I think so. Anyway, he's another good rooster. There's a lot of different qualities. I'll run over those in a different video at some point for you, but we do we're pretty picky on our roosters, and the number one thing is that they have to be nice. So anyway, we were feeding the chickens the same feed, which is totally fine. It's just a grain blend that's local, and we've been feeding them the same grain blend for a really long time. Well, this particular batch, we have had no eggs. Now, we don't supplement with extra light or anything like that, so that's pretty typical for especially the winter time, is not to get eggs. That's okay with me. I'd rather the chickens put their energy and effort into staying warm rather than making eggs. So we take a little break, and then but they should have started laying by now. So when we were up buying new grain at a local place, a different local place, we went ahead and picked up some chicken feed to rule out that the feed was the issue and the reason we weren't getting eggs. Well, sure enough, it was the feed, and we got our very first 2 eggs today. So we're super excited about that. So glad the kids were so excited. So we're going to be doing the same thing with our ducks. We've been feeding them the same grain, and so we're going to go ahead and switch over and start adding this new feed in, and hopefully we'll get some duck eggs real soon. But that's not the only problem we've run into today, so let's go find out what the final problem is. So this is our female goat herd right here, and this morning when I came out, I noticed that Birdie is not feeling very well. So she's got some crud kind of all over in her behind, and some thick poop, which you can see sort of on the ground. Not a great thing. But she doesn't have a runny nose. She has no other problems. She's still eating and drinking. That's a good thing. And no one else is sick. All right, so you never want to see sickness in your herd. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's not ever a fun thing to come out and find out something's going on. But I definitely take a different stance on treating my animals, and that is I want them to be tough. I want them to be able to handle our climate and be able to fight stuff off without me having to intervene a huge amount. Now, obviously, if they needed something massive, I would not hesitate to do something for them. Hi, are you biting me? That's not nice. Come here. Hi, you want some scratches? So I like to first kind of watch and see, like, are they going to be able to fight it off on their own? Now, that period of watch and see could be very, very short, like an hour, or it could be a couple of days. With goats, you really don't want them to be lethargic or feverish, or you don't want your other goats to get sick. So a lot of times if we have a sick animal, we'll just separate them from everybody else. However, this is winter and we don't really have, pretty much all our pens are very full right now. And we don't have the ability to use anything like electric net fencing in the winter time because our ground is frozen. So she's got to stay with everyone else, which means I need to take action as quickly as possible. So I've kind of kept an eye on her a little bit closely this morning. I went ahead and looked through some of my books and did a quick search on Google just to kind of see, like, what are the top reasons for this problem. We've had it not very many times on our farm. Of course, a Google search is always going to give you like the worst case scenario, and I'm not going to subscribe to that. So typically our weather or the feed are going to be my top 2 reasons why something would be going wrong. So in this particular case, I was feeding mostly grass hay and a little bit of alfalfa, and I recently switched over to feeding mostly alfalfa, which is a very rich feed. And so probably that's the issue, but just to be sure, we're going to go ahead and add a couple of other things just to help them. Now, it's a little trickier being able to treat them because 3 of these are pregnant. And so I have to make sure that we're not feeding them anything that's gonna stop that pregnancy or affect that pregnancy in any negative ways. So if this was typically going on like in the summer months and no one was pregnant, then I would probably go straight to my herbal blend that I have made, which is like an anti-parasitic thing, and I would just be feeding them. Everybody would get it, and that's just what we would do. But because we have the 3 pregnant goats, and I feel like in order to kind of just be sure, when we treat one, we treat all. None of the things that I'm gonna give them are going to be bad for them. In fact, they will help boost everybody's overall health. So the first thing I did this morning was I took Bragg's apple cider vinegar and I poured about a teaspoon into their cup of water. So one of the worst parts when they have diarrhea is that, or scours or whatever you'd like to call it, it's just a fancy name for diarrhea, is you want to kind of look at, you know, what does it consist of, and hers is nothing alarming. So the color's fine, it's just pretty typical. So what you really want to watch out for though is dehydration. So we're going to make sure that she's got plenty of fresh clean water, and we're going to be making sure that we put the apple cider vinegar in there, and that's just going to give them a really good immune boost. Hi, honey. So I also like to really watch them. This is kind of typical behavior for her, but she's extra lovey, which tells me she's not feeling super awesome. And that's all right. She's okay. She's not lethargic. She's not, she's still eating, she's still drinking, and she's still kind of wrestling with the other goats. So that's all right. So the other 2 things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and feed each goat a handful of pumpkin seeds. Again, that helps sort of as a natural dewormer, but it's not strong enough to cause any issues in the pregnancies. So each goat is going to get some of those. And then the other thing we're going to do is I'm going to go cut down some pine branches. And I made sure, because in cattle, it can potentially cause abortion, and so we don't want to do that, but with goats and sheep it looks like pine is perfectly fine. So that's what we're going to do, is give them some nice pine branches. It will be a great treat, and we're actually going to go ahead and treat the boys too, because I just don't want to risk it. So that's where we're going to start. If it doesn't clear up in a couple of days, we know we're going to have to do something more. If she gets worse in the next couple days, obviously we would do something different, but for now we're just going to try those things and see what happens. I did give the boys some as well, and as you can tell, Chico is thrilled. Ox doesn't really care much, and neither does Cosmo, but they'll be all right. Chico has claimed the pine, and Cape has claimed hers right here. We got Cape. We got yours. She's like, why are you filming me? All right, you guys. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the animals. Not awesome news, not awesome things happening here, but all things that are fairly manageable. Just part of running a farm, especially in the wintertime. Again, I'll be keeping a very close eye on Birdie and the rest of the goats to make sure that we're all good. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in some new bedding on top of this old bedding. I mean, if it was like a really bad problem where I had more than 2 or 3 goats getting sick, I'd be hauling all of that old deep litter out and putting in brand new stuff. But because it's only 1 goat, and because we've got some things that we can do to just sort of see how they're gonna do, we're not out of options at the moment, then that's not something I'm really ready to do. But if they need it, I would certainly do it. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So I filmed yesterday, and we had a couple of different problems going on in the barnyard. So I thought I'd bring you along for a quick update this morning, because this is how fast things can turn around. I've talked to you guys a lot about the Stockman's eye, and really it just comes down to you keeping an eye on your critters, knowing what they like, knowing what they want. That's always interesting when you bring a new one on the farm, because you have to keep a closer eye on them and get to know them. But the pigs are doing great. They are most definitely fattening up, and we've just been feeding them more water. That's what we talked about yesterday. And that'll be in the beginning of this video here. These boys, they are so happy. So we've actually had an interesting thing going on, and we're not really going to be able to solve the problem. Sorry if it's a little windy. We do have a storm kind of brewing, though I'm praying it's not as crazy as what they're predicting. I doubt it will be. February snow comes and goes fairly quickly. Anyway, so Chico has had kind of like, I think they call it like a sour rumen, or basically he just gets some foam at his mouth. And the reason that happens is because he always is stealing the goose's food. Now we do pour water over the goose's food, so that way the food sinks to the bottom and the goats are less likely to eat it. So they don't get a huge amount of it, but I think because he's getting more grain than he's ever gotten before, that's kind of what's happening. So mainly I've just kept an eye on him and watched out for any of the danger signs, but we don't really have a better winter pen for the goose to be in. I'm afraid if I put him with the ducks, then he might hurt the ducks. He cannot be with the chickens because he doesn't have a female, and so he could definitely hurt the hens. And so this is really the best place for him. He gets along pretty good with the goats. They all snuggle and keep warm. And the only downside that I've noticed so far is that Chico's got that foamy thing happening. So yesterday, you can just see like barely the remains of what we gave them, the pine branches yesterday, and that seems to have completely solved Chico's problem. So I'm really happy about that. I'm not going to give them more branches today because they still have some bark to eat up, which is very good for them. But I am going to make sure that every couple days I'm cutting more branches. We have plenty of pine trees around us, you can see. So we'll just prune off the lower branches, and even tiny little trees will work. And then hopefully that will continue to help him. But yeah, he seems to be in a way better mood today, so that's really good. Him and Ox have a love-hate relationship. He allows him to eat, which is the most important thing, and Ox can definitely defend himself. His horns have grown in pretty well. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's one update. The most important update, though, is that, well, the kiddos have already locked up. They just finished, so they're getting to have some screen time today. They're very excited about that, so they got on with their chores pretty quick. We don't do a lot of screen time in our house. I like to encourage them to use their imaginations and get out and play, because you only get one childhood when you could do that. So the goats, we were worried about Birdie yesterday. They're all in the barn right now eating hay. So we gave them the pumpkin seeds. We gave them a bunch of pine needles as well, and the apple cider vinegar. And today there is absolutely no sign of scours anymore. So I think it was a food related issue, and all the things that we have done have helped that. So she's all better, it seems like, and the rest of the goats are not sick either. So I am very thankful that that worked. That's not always the case. It's not always an easy fix, but fortunately this time it was an easy fix and we got off pretty lightly. So they're just happy eating away in there. We didn't get any more chicken eggs this morning, but we did collect through the afternoon yesterday because it was supposed to get pretty cold and I don't want the eggs to freeze. Those are a hot commodity these days, it seems. So we want to make sure we're being diligent to collect them. So we could get more eggs this afternoon. And we'll have to make our decision whether or not we choose to completely switch their feed over. I'm not sure. So I didn't actually show you guys yesterday. These are the ducks we have. Their run is just a nightmare right now. It's mixed between mud and snow and ice and leftover feed and straw, but they at least have a nice dry place to get to right there. So the ducks should be laying eggs as well. That's primarily why we have them, is so that they can lay eggs for us. We do try to eat the excess males as meat, but we don't usually have very many. We don't hatch a lot of ducks. So right now we just have the one drake can kind of see him back there, maybe with the green head. Anyway, so we went ahead, since we had such good success with the chickens getting the new feed, we thought we'd start in and feed the ducks a little bit of that new feed as well. So we'll see. We should, if it's gonna work, then we should have eggs in a couple of days. So the kids are extremely excited about that. That's one of their favorite part of doing chores. So I'm hoping we'll just have to wait and see. So that's kind of the update on the farm. Thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to learn and grow. I'll see you in the next one.